Welcome to Oglar Adventures. I'm Krista and I'm glad you're here with me today. So much better. Still have some cleanup to do, but it's a lot better than it was. So sometimes what I like to do is just to take a look around and see the area that I am going to be using and just kind of get a feel for what I need to do in that space to make it the most efficient. So here I discovered the squirrel's stash of walnuts there on the shelf, and then up higher there is the hole that goes into the squirrel's nest. So yeah, we're gonna have to take care of that soon. So right now I'm gonna go get my table and my soil because I'm gonna mix it up. So I'm using a couple different kinds of seed starting mixes and just mixing them together, because I find that if you just use one kind, a lot of times there's something up with it and it just doesn't work out the way that you want it to. So I like to mix mine. So I'm getting my table set up here, and then I'm gonna go get the stuff to do my soil. And I like to keep it in a big plastic bin, as you'll see. So I had a bit of a revelation. I was thinking about, getting seeds started in the greenhouse room and everything in garden and all of that. And I realized we're supposed to be cutting down trees this winter. There is one major problem, and that is that the ground isn't frozen. It is 60 degrees outside today, or it was. It's probably dropping down a little bit more now. But it was 60 degrees outside today. The ground's not frozen. It feels very much like spring. And the timber guys said that they weren't going to drive on the property and cut the trees down and drag them out unless the ground was frozen or dry, I should say. So now I'm like, well, if I get everything started for garden, and then they are going to come in here and cut trees down and drag them out, they're going to destroy my gardens. My husband suggested that I work on a potager up in the front of the house, which is right near the kitchen where potagers are supposed to be. And there's a lot of trees out there too that are also going to get cut. So I'm thinking that this year, what I'm going to have to do, and obviously it's not ideal because I wanted to get back into, gardening and doing all the stuff again. I am going to have to container garden this year. We have a pretty large deck, and what I'm going to need to do is put my pots out on the deck. I've got a green stalk. I have another little fake green stalk called a Mr. Stacky that I can put out there as well. And I'm going to have to grow in that this year. It is not ideal, absolutely not. But with the tree situation, until we can get the trees cut, and the trees are black walnut for the most part, it is going to be extremely difficult to get anything handled with that. I don't want to, put in all this work and then have the timber company come in here and cut the trees down and destroy all of my work. So I will be growing indoors. I will be growing in the green stalk in some pots that I had purchased before for herbs. Actually, it was mint that I had in there, just many, many different kinds of mint. But only a couple of them survived the winter because I didn't think to cover them because it was my first time having to worry about overwintering mint. In the Pacific Northwest, mint just comes back every year without a problem. But here in Michigan, the cold weather doesn't like to play nice with the mint. And I didn't realize that. So I did not cover my mint for that winter, and they all died except for 2. So I have a bunch of empty pots that I can, obviously, I'm going to be adding some compost to them and getting them in really good shape. And then I can use those to plant in as well. So they're actually pretty big size pots. But yeah, gardening is going to look different for me this year for sure. Last year it looked terrible because nothing really happened. I also think that getting the black walnut trees out of here will help with the soil. The black walnuts produce juggalones, and juggalones are pretty toxic to a lot of plants, especially fruiting varieties of plants. And once you remove the juggalone producing tree from the area, the soil kind of works on healing itself almost immediately. And I've read in several places that it takes about 6 months before the soil is clear of 3 to 6 months is what it said, before the soil is clear of the juggalones and things will start to thrive. So that could be part of the problem last year is I didn't buy a new load of compost. So the first year I did, and I bought a couple truckloads of compost, and that's what I used to build my garden beds. Last year I didn't buy any extra compost. I just had some fertilizer, and I just worked with what was already there. Not a good idea, especially when you have black walnut trees in the vicinity. So black walnut trees in a 10-foot ring around the tree. Is it 10? It might be 30. I'll have to look it up. Anywhere around the black walnut tree, the juggalones go into the soil. So anything that's in that vicinity gets affected by the juggalones. So that could be the reason, one of the reasons why my garden did so horrible last year, because I didn't build up the compost and get more good soil on top of the old stuff from the last year that had already started to break down. So if I wait until after the trees are removed and then, really plan, really start working on assembling pieces for that this year and, into the winter time, then in the spring next year, I will be able to go full out with building a really good garden that's going to have really good soil. And I will order more compost to put into those raised beds again. And, you know, we're going to be starting over from scratch, building all new raised beds anyway. So that's definitely something that we're going to have to do. So yeah, this has just been kind of an interesting thought process for me, because I went from, you know, last year not having a good garden at all, having a terrible, horrible failure of a garden, just because of my inability to spend the time that needed to be spent on it. And then, you know, then I was all hopeful after, you know, recovering from the surgeries and just kind of getting a, you know, newfound sense of, oh, I want to do this. I really want to do this. And getting all excited about that, starting to work on plans and everything. And then, you know, the reality of, well, they haven't cut the trees down yet, kind of hit me. And I now realize that I'm just going to have to go hit up the farmers markets to get the stuff that I need to get for canning, things that we keep as staples for our family. So I have been working on making some, you know, meals on a shelf kind of thing. I've been canning beans. I've been canning just, you know, plain chicken chunks. And I'm just going to focus on using up the items that I already have. And then when, you know, springtime, summertime comes around, I will go to farmers markets and purchase things that I need that I'm not going to be able to grow an abundance of, to be able to can things like salsa, tomato sauce, pickles. These are all staples, definitely, for sure, in our family. So that's what my plan is right now. And then I will definitely take you along with me through all of those adventures with making the items that I'm going to be canning and putting up in our canning room for the family. Right now I am going to show you in my not even close to being done greenhouse room what I'm going to be working on for the moment, just to get stuff started and ready to put into those containers. I am going to be winter sowing some herbs. So Jessica at Three Rivers Homestead uses this method. That's where I first heard of it. And basically it's taking old plastic bottles, in this case they're old milk cartons, and cutting them open and kind of using them as mini greenhouses to get stuff started. So you just put the soil in, you sprinkle the seeds on it, you water it, you know, you tape it shut, and just kind of leave it in a sunny place, which in this case I'm going to leave here in the greenhouse room right over by the south facing windows, and let them sprout. And then once it's time to plant them out into the garden, or, you know, in our case the pots that are going to go on the deck, which is right up above me here, then that's where they'll go. So it's just kind of a good way to get a head start on things without being too fussy about it. So and you can use the warmth of the sun to help germinate them instead of having to worry about heat mats and that kind of thing. I do have plenty of heat mats, don't get me wrong. I've got grow lights, I've got heat mats, I've got all that stuff, but I'd rather use those for tomatoes and peppers. So I'm gonna get my herbs started in these little containers here that will be filled with soil and the seeds and some water. Duct tape is a pretty important component of the winter sowing bottle greenhouse method, I guess is what you'd call it. So use the duct tape to seal the bottles when you're done. But more than that, I got different colored duct tape so that I could color code the bottles so I know what I'm planting where. I tried writing on the bottles last year with permanent marker, and frankly, it just wore off. So I'm not going to make that mistake this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the colored duct tape, put it on the outside of the jug, and then also put a piece of that same tape on the herb packet when I'm done filling up the containers. So far I have 9 different varieties of things that I'm going to be growing in this seed sowing method. So I'm going to be growing rosemary, 2 kinds of basil. I've got sweet basil and Genovese basil. I've got cilantro, regular chives, garlic chives, thyme, sage, and then I'm also going to be growing kale in this way. So after I get the seeds into the containers on top of the soil, I pat the seeds down in there gently, and then I close up the jug by sealing it with the duct tape. After I do that, I'm going to put water in through the top. You don't need the lids for this method. You just take the lids off, and that way there is some air circulation, and it's an easy way to water the growing seedlings. This is that labeling method that I referred to before. I put a piece of the blue tape on this jug, and then I put a piece of that tape on the seed packet too. That way I know what I planted in which container, and I don't have to worry about the permanent marker coming off in the weather and the elements. I have a big surprise binder where I will keep all of my empty seed packets with the tape on it so that I can keep track of the plantings for this season. much for joining me today. My hope is, as always, that you got something valuable from this video today. If there are any questions that you have, please feel free to leave them in the comment box down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!